The crystal tower of Dom Perignon bottles swayed like a house of cards in an earthquake. Arya Patel watched in slow-motion horror as her elbow, the same elbow that had just bumped into the display while reaching for her dropped phone, sent $50,000 worth of champagne crashing to the marble floor of Beverly Hills' most exclusive shopping center. "Oh no, oh no, oh no," she whispered, backing away from the sparkling disaster as security guards materialized from every direction like suited vultures. "Miss! Miss! Stop right there!" The head of security, a man who looked like he bench-pressed luxury cars for fun, was charging toward her with the determination of a linebacker. Arya's mind raced. She was a 26-year-old barista who made $12 an hour plus tips. The most expensive thing she owned was her coffee machine, and even that was a graduation gift from her adoptive parents. $50,000 might as well have been $50 million. "I can explain," she called out, but her voice cracked like a teenager's. The security team wasn't interested in explanations. They wanted blood, or at least a credit card with a very high limit. Panic mode activated. Arya spun around, her dark skin glistening with nervous sweat, her curly hair bouncing as she searched desperately for an escape route. The shopping center suddenly felt like a maze designed by someone who hated people in financial trouble. That's when she saw him. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent, with the kind of sharp jawline that belonged in magazine ads. He was walking out of what looked like a very serious business meeting, checking his phone with the casual confidence of someone who owned the world. Without thinking, because thinking was a luxury she couldn't afford with security breathing down her neck, Arya made the most impulsive decision of her life. She ran straight at the stranger and launched herself into his arms like a damsel in distress from a 1950s movie. "Please help me," she gasped, wrapping her arms around her neck. "I'll explain everything, but right now, I need you to pretend you know me." The man, who smelled like expensive cologne and danger, caught her effortlessly. For a moment his dark eyes widened in surprise, but then something shifted in his expression. A slow smile spread across his face, and Arya felt her heart do something complicated. "Well," he said in accented English, his voice smooth as silk, "this is certainly more interesting than my afternoon meetings." Jae-sung Choi had been expecting many things when he left his business meeting at the upscale restaurant. He'd expected his cousin Sang-woo to complain about the new territory agreements. He'd expected Kyung-min to lecture him about keeping a lower profile. He'd expected Jun-ho to present him with spreadsheets that would give him a headache. What he hadn't expected was for a beautiful black woman with the most expressive brown eyes he'd ever seen to literally throw herself into his arms while being chased by mall security. "Sir!" The head security guard skidded to a halt in front of them, slightly out of breath. "That woman just destroyed $50,000 worth of merchandise. We need to—" "Handle what exactly?" Jae-sung's voice carried the kind of quiet authority that made people reconsider their life choices. He shifted Arya slightly in his arms, noting how perfectly she fit against him. "Are you suggesting that my girlfriend is some kind of criminal?" Arya's eyes went wide. "Girlfriend?" She opened her mouth to correct him, but he gave her the slightest shake of his head. "Your girlfriend." The security guard looked confused. "Sir, she was running from the scene of an accident," Jae-sung finished smoothly, "which I'm sure was exactly that. An accident." He looked down at Arya with what appeared to be genuine affection. "Weren't you just telling me how clumsy you've been lately, darling?" Arya blinked. This stranger was either the kindest person in Los Angeles or completely insane. Possibly both. Yes, very clumsy. Like, embarrassingly clumsy." "The champagne display," the security guard started, "will be handled appropriately." Jae-sung reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card that made the security guard's eyes widen. "Have Michelle Roberts from the store contact my office. We'll settle this matter privately." The security guard looked at the card, then at Jae-sung, then at the card again. Whatever was written on that small piece of paper had the magical effect of making a very angry man suddenly very cooperative. "Of course, Mr. Yes, sir, right away, sir." He practically bowed before hurrying away, speaking rapidly into his radio. Arya stared at the retreating figure, then up at her unexpected savior. What just happened? What's on that card? Are you some kind of wizard? Jae-sung laughed, a rich, warm sound that made her stomach do tiny somersaults. Something like that, though I prefer the term businessman. What kind of business makes security guards act like your royalty? The kind that pays very well for discretion. He set her gently on her feet but didn't step away. I'm Jae-sung, by the way. Jae-sung Choi. My friends call me Jason. Arya Patel. She looked around nervously. And I'm pretty sure I'm about to be arrested or sued or both. Not while you're with me. His confidence was absolute, and something about the way he said it made her believe him. But I am curious, what exactly happened back there? Arya groaned, covering her face with her hands. I dropped my phone, bent down to get it, stood up too fast, and apparently have the spatial awareness of a drunk giraffe. Next thing I know, I'm recreating the fall of Rome with champagne bottles. A drunk giraffe. Jae-sung's eyes crinkled with amusement. It's a very specific kind of clumsy. My family has been documenting it for years. She peeked at him through her fingers. I can't believe you just saved me. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Something flickered across his face, an expression she couldn't quite read. Maybe I wanted to get to know you. The way he said it, with that slight accent and those dark eyes focused entirely on her, made Arya's brain temporarily forget how to form words. This was not how her Tuesday was supposed to go. I have to pay you back, she said finally. For the champagne. I don't know how, but I will. I'm not a charity case. I'm sure you're not. He studied her face with an intensity that made her feel like he was memorizing every detail. But $50,000 is a lot of money. I know. I'll figure it out. Maybe I can set up a payment plan. Like a really, really long payment plan. My great-grandchildren will probably still be making payments. Jae-sung laughed again, and Arya decided she liked that sound way too much for someone she'd met 5 minutes ago during a champagne-related crisis. How about this, he said. Let me take you to dinner, and we'll call it even. Dinner? Arya blinked. That's not even remotely equivalent to $50,000. Unless you're planning to feed me gold-plated sushi. I know a place. There was something about the way he said it that made her suspect his idea of dinner, and her idea of dinner existed in completely different tax brackets. I don't understand, she said slowly. Why are you being so nice to me? People don't just do this. Not for strangers. Maybe, Jae-sung said, stepping closer. You're not a stranger anymore. And despite every rational thought in her head, telling her that mysterious men who could make security guards disappear with business cards were probably not the safest dating options, Arya heard herself saying, okay, dinner. Because sometimes, when champagne bottles were falling and handsome strangers were catching you, the only reasonable response was to see where the story went next. 3 days later, Arya was still trying to convince herself that the whole champagne incident had actually happened. She'd Googled Jae-sung Choi approximately 17 times, finding only vague references to import-export businesses and a few photos from charity galas where he looked devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo. She was in the middle of her 18th Google search when the bell above the door of Grind Coffee chimed and her heart stopped. Jae-sung walked in like he owned the place, which, given his apparent wealth, he very well might. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans and a navy sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but he still looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Arya! Jessica Garcia, her co-worker and fellow drama enthusiast, grabbed her arm with the subtlety of a fire alarm. Is that him? Is that the guy? He looks like he walked out of a K-drama. Shh! Arya hissed, but it was too late. Jae-sung had spotted her and was walking over with that confident stride that made her knees feel unreliable. Good morning, he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement as he took in Jessica's not-so-subtle staring. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Just my co-worker having a minor celebrity sighting, Arya said, shooting Jessica a look that promised retribution later. Jessica, this is Jason. Jason, this is Jessica, who apparently has no filter before noon. Or afternoon, Jessica added helpfully, extending her hand. Nice to meet you. Arya hasn't stopped talking about you since Tuesday. Jessica. Arya's face heated up. What? It's true. You've been walking around here like you're in some romantic comedy where the mysterious businessman sweeps the clumsy girl off her feet. Jessica turned to Jae-sung with obvious delight. Are you mysterious? You look mysterious. Jae-sung laughed, and Arya noticed how the sound made other customers turn to look. I prefer to think of myself as selectively transparent. Ooh, that's even better than mysterious, Jessica said. Arya, I like him. Don't you have customers to serve? Arya asked pointedly. Brian can handle it. This is much more interesting. Jessica leaned against the counter like she was settling in for a show. Jae-sung looked at Arya with raised eyebrows. Should I be concerned about this interrogation? Only if you have something to hide, Arya said, then immediately regretted it when something flickered across his face. I think everyone has something to hide, he said quietly. The question is whether it's worth hiding. Jessica made a little awe sound. See, mysterious and philosophical. Arya, if you don't marry him, I will. Jessica. But Arya was laughing despite herself. Don't you have a boyfriend? Details. Jessica waved her hand dismissively. So, Jason, what brings you to our humble coffee establishment? Besides seeing our girl here, obviously. Actually, Jae-sung said, I was hoping Arya might teach me how to make coffee. Proper coffee. Not the kind that comes from machines that cost more than most cars. Arya blinked. You want me to teach you? Don't you have people for that? People for what? I don't know. Rich people things. Making coffee, tying shoes, breathing. Jae-sung's smile was soft and genuine. I'd rather learn from you. Jessica made another awe sound, louder this time. Okay, that's it. Arya, teach the man to make coffee before I spontaneously combust from the cuteness. Fine, Arya said, trying to ignore the way her heart was doing acrobatics. But fair warning, I'm a terrible teacher, and you might end up with something that resembles motor oil. I'll take my chances. 20 minutes later, Arya was seriously reconsidering her life choices. Jae-sung was standing behind the espresso machine like it had personally offended him, holding the portafilter like it might explode. It's not a weapon, Arya said, trying not to laugh. You don't have to grip it like you're about to go into battle. In my experience, unfamiliar equipment can be dangerous, he said seriously. It's a coffee machine, not a... I don't know. What's dangerous in your line of work? Angry spreadsheets? Something flickered across his face again, that same expression she couldn't quite read. Something like that. Okay, try again. Gentle pressure, smooth motion. She moved to stand behind him, reaching around to guide his hands. The moment her fingers touched his, she felt like she'd been electrocuted. Like this. Jae-sung went very still. Arya. Yeah? You're standing very close. She was. Close enough to smell his cologne, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body, close enough to notice that his breathing had changed. Sorry, she said, but she didn't move away. I just wanted to... The espresso machine made a sound like a dying whale, and coffee grounds exploded everywhere. Oh, Arya jumped back, laughing. Okay, that's definitely not supposed to happen. Jae-sung looked down at his coffee-covered sweater with an expression of mild bewilderment. I think I broke it. You didn't break it. You just gave it a personality disorder. Arya grabbed a towel and started wiping coffee grounds off his chest, then realized what she was doing and froze. Sorry. It's fine. His voice was rougher than usual. More than fine. They stared at each other for a moment, the air thick with something that had nothing to do with coffee grounds. Ahem? Brian Thompson, the manager, cleared his throat loudly. Not that this isn't adorable, but we do have actual customers who might want coffee that doesn't come with a side of romantic tension. Arya stepped back quickly, her face burning. Right, sorry, Brian. No worries, just maybe save the coffee lessons for after hours. Brian grinned. Or at least warn me so I can sell tickets. Jae-sung was looking between Arya and Brian with an expression that seemed almost protective. Is he always this involved in your personal life? Brian's harmless, Arya said quickly. He's like the annoying big brother I never wanted. Hey, Brian protested. I prefer charmingly invested in my employees' happiness. That's a very long way to say nosy, Jessica called from across the shop. Jae-sung relaxed slightly, and Arya wondered why he'd seemed tense in the first place. So, she said, coffee lessons are clearly not your calling. What are you actually good at? Negotiations, he said immediately. Problem solving. Making people see reason. That sounds very corporate and intimidating. It can be. What kind of problems do you solve? Another flicker of that unreadable expression. The complicated kind. Arya studied his face. There was something he wasn't telling her, something big. But every time she got close to figuring out what it was, he'd smile or say something charming, and she'd forget to be suspicious. Well, she said finally, whatever you do, you're clearly successful at it. That business card of yours worked like magic on the security guards. I have good connections. Must be nice, the only connection I have is my cousin Ava. And her idea of solving problems usually involves very loud arguments and occasionally throwing things. Sounds effective. You'd think so, but it turns out most problems can't be solved by yelling at them. Who knew? Arya grinned. Though, to be fair, she's never tried it on champagne displays. Jae-sung laughed, and the tension in his shoulders eased. I'd like to meet this cousin of yours. Oh no, Ava's very protective. She'll probably interrogate you like you're applying for a top-secret government position. I can handle interrogations. The way he said it made Arya wonder exactly what kind of business he was in. Import-export seemed awfully vague for someone who could make security guards disappear and afford to casually pay for $50,000 accidents. Jason, she said slowly, what exactly do you import and export? For just a moment, his smile faltered. Various things. It's complicated. Complicated how? The kind of complicated that's very boring to explain. Arya had the distinct feeling she was being deflected, but before she could press further, Jessica appeared at her elbow like a caffeinated fairy godmother. Sorry to interrupt the mysterious businessman interrogation, she said, but Arya, you have a customer who specifically requested you. Says she's your cousin? Arya turned to see Ava Patel standing by the door, wearing her scrubs and the expression she usually reserved for people who tried to cut in line at the hospital. Oh no, Arya muttered. Problem? Jae-sung asked. That's Ava. The protective cousin I mentioned. She has a sixth sense for when I'm talking to attractive men, and she always shows up too. Evaluate the situation. Evaluate. She likes to make sure I'm not making terrible life choices, which, to be fair, I have a history of doing. Jae-sung straightened his shoulders like he was preparing for battle. Should I be worried? Only if you're not exactly who you say you are, Arya said, then paused. You are exactly who you say you are, right? The question hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Arya thought she saw something like guilt flash across his face. Arya! Ava called from across the shop. Stop flirting and introduce me to your friend. Here we go, Arya muttered. Try not to take anything she says personally. She means well, but she has the subtlety of a sledgehammer. As they walked over to meet Ava, Jae-sung leaned down to whisper in Arya's ear. For what it's worth, I think protective family members are a good thing. The warmth of his breath against her ear made her shiver in the best possible way. Easy for you to say. You don't have to live with the interrogation afterward. But as they approached Ava, who was already sizing up Jae-sung like she was calculating exactly how much trouble he could cause, Arya found herself hoping he'd pass whatever test her cousin had in mind. Because despite the mysterious business cards and the vague job descriptions, despite the feeling that there was more to Jason than met the eye, she was already in way too deep to back out now. So, Ava said, settling into the chair across from Jae-sung with the predatory grace of a prosecutor approaching a hostile witness. Arya tells me you're in import-export. They were sitting in the small cafe area, and Arya could practically feel the tension radiating from both of them. Jae-sung had that carefully neutral expression that probably served him well in business meetings, while Ava had her, I'm a nurse and I've seen everything, face on. That's right, Jae-sung said smoothly. What kind of imports? Various goods, electronics, textiles, specialty items. From where? primarily Asia, some European connections. Arya watched this exchange like a tennis match, wondering if she should intervene or just let them duke it out verbally. Ava leaned back, studying him. And you just happened to be at the Beverly Hills shopping center when my cousin decided to redecorate with champagne. Lucky timing, Jae-sung said, and Arya caught the slight smile tugging at his lips. Very lucky, almost suspiciously lucky. Ava, Arya warned. What? I'm just making conversation. Ava's innocent tone fooled exactly no one. So, Jason, what are your intentions with my cousin? Jae-sung blinked. I'm sorry? Your intentions. You know what you're planning to do with her. Are you looking for something casual, something serious? A green card marriage? I need to know these things. Oh my God, Ava. Arya's face was on fire. We've been on exactly 0 dates. There are no intentions to discuss. Yet, Jae-sung said quietly, and both women turned to look at him. I mean, I'd like there to be, if Arya's interested. The way he said it, direct and honest, made Arya's heart do that fluttering thing again. See, Ava said triumphantly. Intentions. I like a man who's upfront about what he wants. She leaned forward again. But I should warn you, Jason, Arya's family is very important to her. We're protective of each other. As you should be, Jae-sung said seriously. Family loyalty is everything. Something in his tone made both women look at him more closely. You sound like you speak from experience, Ava observed. I do. Big family? A shadow crossed his face. Complicated family. Aren't they all? Ava's expression softened slightly. Well, if you're serious about dating our girl here, you should probably meet the parents. Fair warning, though, Robert will try to feed you until you explode, and Grace will ask you approximately 700 questions about your career, your finances, and your 5-year plan. They sound wonderful, Jae-sung said, and he seemed to mean it. They are, Arya said softly. They're the best people I know. Adoptive parents? Jae-sung asked gently. Arya nodded. Since I was 8. Robert and Grace Kim. They took me in when I needed a family, and they never made me feel like anything other than their daughter. Kim. Jae-sung's eyebrows rose. Korean? Yep, so I grew up eating kimchi and learning to bow properly to elders, even though I looked nothing like the rest of my family. Arya grinned. It confused the hell out of people when I was younger. I bet it did. Jae-sung was looking at her with something that might have been wonder. Do you speak Korean? Enough to get by, and enough to know when Grace is talking about me in the kitchen. Arya laughed. Why, do you? It's my first language. Really? Say something in Korean. Jae-sung's eyes crinkled as he spoke a rapid sentence in Korean that sounded both musical and authoritative. Arya blinked. Okay, I definitely didn't catch all of that, but I think you just said something about beautiful, and maybe something about fate. Very good, he said, looking impressed. What did he say? Ava demanded. Arya felt her cheeks warm. I think he said I was beautiful, and that meeting me was fate. But my Korean's not perfect, so he might have been talking about the weather. I wasn't talking about the weather, Jae-sung said softly. Ava looked between them with the expression of someone watching a particularly good drama. Okay, I officially approve. Anyone who can make Arya blush like that gets points in my book. Ava. What? You're glowing. It's adorable. Ava stood up, checking her watch. I have to get back to the hospital, but Jason, you should definitely come to dinner this weekend. Sunday, 6 o'clock. Robert's making bulgogi, and Grace will probably spend 3 hours preparing banchan. I'd be honored, Jae-sung said, standing as well. Good. And Jason? Ava's voice took on a slightly sharper edge. Arya's special. She's been through enough in her life, and she deserves someone who's going to treat her right. If you're not that person, it's better to figure that out now. Jae-sung met her gaze steadily. I understand. Good. Ava's smile returned. Arya, walk me out? As they stepped outside, Ava grabbed Arya's arm. Okay, spill. What's the real story with this guy? There is no story. I met him 3 days ago when I destroyed a champagne display. And he just happened to have enough money and influence to make that problem disappear. He's successful. Some people are. Arya. Ava's voice was serious now. I've been a nurse for 5 years. I've seen all kinds of people, and that man in there, he's not just successful. He's dangerous. Dangerous how? I don't know. But there's something about him. The way he carries himself, the way he watches everything, the way he answered my questions. He's hiding something big. Arya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the afternoon breeze. You think he's lying about his job? I think his job is exactly what he says it is, but I don't think import-export covers everything he does. Ava squeezed her arm. Just be careful, okay? I like him. He seems genuinely interested in you, and God knows you deserve someone who looks at you like you hung the moon. But trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. As Ava drove away, Arya stood on the sidewalk, her mind racing. She thought about the way Jae-sung had handled the security guards, the way he'd spoken about family loyalty, the careful way he answered certain questions. When she went back inside, he was still sitting at the table, looking out the window with a thoughtful expression. "Everything okay?" he asked as she sat down. "Ava likes you," Arya said. "Which is actually kind of amazing. She usually hates everyone I date." "Usually?" "Okay, there haven't been that many people to hate. But she's very selective about who she approves of. And you, do you approve of me?" The question was light, but there was something underneath it, something that sounded almost vulnerable. "I'm still figuring that out," Arya said honestly. "You're complicated." "Complicated how?" "You pay for $50,000 accidents without blinking. You carry business cards that make security guards disappear. You speak about family loyalty like it's a matter of life and death. And you want to learn how to make coffee from a barista who makes $12 an hour." She studied his face. "Those things don't exactly add up to a typical businessman." Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. "What if I told you that everything I've said to you is true, but not complete?" "I'd say that sounds like something someone says when they're about to tell me they're married, or in witness protection, or secretly a vampire." He laughed, but it sounded strained. "Not married, not in witness protection, definitely not a vampire. But my life is complicated, and I don't want to complicate yours." "What if I want to be complicated?" The words were out before Arya could stop them, and she felt her face heat up. "I mean, Arya?" Jae-sung reached across the table and took her hand. "Are you sure?" His hand was warm and strong, and there were small scars across his knuckles that she hadn't noticed before. "Sure about what?" "About wanting to get to know me, really know me, because once you do, you can't unknow it." There was something in his voice, a warning maybe, or a plea. Arya looked into his dark eyes and saw something that looked like fear. "Jason," she said softly, "what exactly are you trying to tell me?" "I'm trying to tell you that I'm not the kind of man you should get involved with. Shouldn't I be the judge of that? You should. But you should also know what you're judging." Arya felt like they were having two different conversations, the one with words and another one underneath, full of things he wasn't saying. "Okay," she said finally. "So tell me, what should I know?" Jae-sung looked down at their joined hands, his thumb tracing across her knuckles. "My family's business. It's not always straightforward. We operate in areas where the lines between legal and illegal can be blurry." Arya's heart started beating faster. "Blurry how?" "The kind of blurry that means I have enemies. The kind that means people close to me can become targets." "Targets for what?" "For people who want to hurt me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Arya felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into something deep and dark and possibly dangerous. "So, when you say import-export," "I mean import-export. But I also mean other things. Things that require the kind of connections that make security guards cooperative and problems disappear." Arya pulled her hand back slowly. "Are you telling me you're a criminal?" "I'm telling you that the world I live in isn't black and white. It's complicated and it's dangerous, and it's not fair to drag you into it without warning you first." "But you want to drag me into it?" Jae-sung looked up at her, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. "More than I've ever wanted anything. Which is exactly why I shouldn't. They stared at each other across the small table, the weight of his confession settling between them like a challenge. So what happens now? Arya asked quietly. Now you decide if you want to have dinner with my family on Sunday, knowing that it's not just dinner, it's a choice. A choice about what? About whether you want to be part of something that might be beautiful and might be dangerous and will definitely change your life. Arya thought about Ava's warning, about the careful way he answered questions, about the scars on his knuckles and the way he'd made $50,000 in damages disappear with a phone call. She thought about the way he'd caught her when she'd literally thrown herself at him, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious, the way he'd spoken Korean and made her heart flutter. Sunday dinner, she said finally, 6 o'clock. Jae-sung's smile was like sunrise. Are you sure? No, Arya said honestly. But I'm curious, and apparently I like complicated. As he leaned across the table to kiss her hand, Arya wondered if she was making the best decision of her life, or the worst one. Either way, she was pretty sure it was going to be interesting. Sunday evening found Arya pacing her small apartment like a caged tiger, changing clothes for the 4th time. She'd settled on a simple black dress that Grace had complimented before, but now she was second-guessing everything. It's just dinner, she told her reflection. Dinner with your family and the mysterious businessman who may or may not be involved in illegal activities. Totally normal Sunday evening. The knock on her door came at exactly 5:45, because of course Jae-sung was punctual. When she opened it, her breath caught. He was holding flowers, not roses, but a beautiful arrangement of peonies and eucalyptus that looked like it had cost more than her grocery budget for a month. He was dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal those scarred forearms, and he looked nervous. "Hi," he said, offering her the flowers. "I wasn't sure what kind you liked, so I asked the florist for something beautiful and unique." "Like me?" Arya asked, then immediately felt her face heat up. "I mean, exactly like you." His smile was soft and genuine. "Are you ready for this? Are you? Because I should warn you, Robert's going to ask you about your intentions, Grace is going to quiz you about your family, and Daniel's going to challenge you to video games after dinner." "Sounds perfect. You say that now, but you haven't met them yet." The drive to her parents' house in Koreatown was filled with comfortable conversation about everything except the elephant in the room, namely the fact that Jae-sung had essentially confessed to being involved in criminal activities, and she'd decided to date him anyway. "So," Arya said, as they pulled up to the modest 2-story house with its carefully tended garden, "any last-minute confessions, secret wives, outstanding warrants, vampire tendencies?" "Just the usual criminal enterprise," Jae-sung said lightly, then caught her expression. "Too soon for jokes about that?" "Maybe a little." He reached over and took her hand. "Arya, if this is too much, it's not. I mean it is, but I want to be here. I want you to meet them." She squeezed his fingers. "Just be yourself, okay? They'll love you. And if they don't, then I'll love you enough for all of us." The words slipped out before Arya could stop them, and they both went very still. "Arya," Jae-sung said quietly, "I know it's too soon to say that. I know we barely know each other. I know you're probably dangerous and definitely complicated and—" He kissed her. Right there in the car in front of her parents' house, he leaned over and kissed her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "For the record," he said, his forehead resting against hers, "I'm falling in love with you too." "Good," Arya whispered, "because that would have been really embarrassing otherwise." They were still smiling at each other when the front door opened and Robert Kim appeared on the porch, wearing his favorite apron and a suspicious expression. "Arya, you're late. And who is this young man who's been kissing my daughter in front of my house like some kind of Romeo?" Grace Kim appeared beside her husband, swatting him with a dish towel. "Leave them alone, Robert. Young people kiss. It's what they do." "Not in front of my house, they don't." "Oh my God," Arya muttered, getting out of the car. "I'm so sorry. They're usually more subtle about the embarrassing parent thing." "I heard that," Robert called. Jae-sung got out of the car, straightening his shirt and putting on what Arya was beginning to recognize as his meeting important people face. "Mr. and Mrs. Kim, it's an honor to meet you. I'm Jae-sung Choi." He bowed, a proper, respectful bow that made both of Arya's parents blink in surprise. "Oh," Grace said, her stern expression melting. "Oh, you have lovely manners." "Thank you, ma'am. I brought these for you." He handed Grace the flowers. "And this for you, sir." He pulled a bottle of what looked like very expensive whiskey from his car. Robert examined the bottle with the attention of a sommelier. This is very good whiskey, son." "My pleasure, sir." "Well," Robert said, his suspicious expression giving way to grudging approval, "I suppose you can come in. But no more kissing in front of the house." "Robert!" Grace swatted him again. "Come inside, both of you. Dinner's almost ready." As they walked into the house, Arya caught Jae-sung looking around with an expression she couldn't quite read. The Kim house was warm and lived in, full of family photos and Korean pottery, and the lingering smell of garlic and sesame oil. "Arya," Daniel bounded down the stairs like an overgrown puppy, stopping short when he saw Jae-sung. "Oh, hi. You must be the mysterious businessman." "Daniel," Arya warned. "What?" "That's how you described him. Mysterious businessman who may or may not be a secret agent." "I never said secret agent." "You implied it." Jae-sung was watching this exchange with obvious amusement. "I'm definitely not a secret agent." "That's exactly what a secret agent would say," Daniel pointed out. "Daniel, stop interrogating Arya's boyfriend and help me in the kitchen," Grace called. "Boyfriend?" Arya squeaked. "Well, what else should I call him?" Grace appeared in the doorway, hands on her hips. "The man you're obviously crazy about. Too long." "Mom." "What? It's obvious. You've been glowing since Tuesday." Jae-sung leaned down to whisper in Arya's ear, "I like your family." "They're insane," she whispered back. "The best families usually are." Dinner was a revelation. Arya had been worried about how Jae-sung would fit in with her family's chaotic warmth, but she needn't have bothered. He complimented Grace's cooking with genuine enthusiasm, discussed business with Robert without being condescending, and managed to hold his own when Daniel challenged him to an impromptu debate about the best Korean dramas. "So, Jae-sung," Grace said as they were finishing the main course, "Arya tells us you're in import-export. What exactly do you import?" Arya tensed, but Jae-sung answered smoothly. "Various goods, primarily from Asia. Electronics, textiles, some specialty food items. And your family, are they in the same business?" Something flickered across Jae-sung's face. "In a way, my family has traditional business interests." "Traditional how?" Robert asked. "The kind that have been in the family for generations. Honor and loyalty are very important to us." Grace nodded approvingly. "Good Korean values. Family comes first." "Always," Jae-sung said, and there was something in his voice that made Arya look at him more closely. "Do you have siblings?" Daniel asked. "A cousin who works with me. Some. Extended family members." "And your parents?" Jae-sung's expression shuttered slightly. "My father passed away when I was young. My mother. She's not well." "I'm sorry," Grace said softly. "That must be difficult." "It is. But family obligations don't end because things are difficult." The way he said it made Arya wonder exactly what kind of family obligations he was talking about. "Well," Robert said, raising his glass, "to family. Both the one you're born into and the one you choose." "To family," everyone echoed, and Arya caught Jae-sung's eye across the table. He smiled at her, but there was something sad in his expression. After dinner, while Grace and Arya were cleaning up in the kitchen, Grace pulled her daughter aside. "I like him," she said quietly. But he's carrying something heavy. I can see it in his eyes." "What kind of heavy?" "The kind that comes from having to make difficult choices. The kind that comes from responsibility you can't walk away from." Grace dried a plate thoughtfully. "He's a good man, Arya, but he's not a simple man." "I know." "Do you? Because loving someone complicated means accepting that their problems become your problems. Their enemies become your enemies." Arya's hand stilled in the soapy water. "What makes you think he has enemies?" The way he watches the doors, the way he positions himself so he can see the whole room, the way he checks his phone like he's expecting bad news. Grace touched Arya's shoulder gently. I've seen it before, in some of the men from the old country. Men who had to be careful about who they trusted. You think he's dangerous? I think he's dangerous to be around. There's a difference. Before Arya could ask what that meant, Jae-sung appeared in the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just got a call I need to take. Work emergency. Of course, Grace said. Use the study if you need privacy. As Jae-sung disappeared down the hall, Arya heard him speaking rapidly in Korean, his voice tense and authoritative. She caught a few words, something about problems and solutions and people who needed to be handled. See? Grace said quietly. Heavy. When Jae-sung returned a few minutes later, his expression was carefully neutral, but Arya could see the tension in his shoulders. Everything okay? She asked. Fine. Just some supply chain issues that needed immediate attention. But as they said their goodbyes and drove back to Arya's apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that supply chain issues was code for something much more serious. Your family is wonderful, Jae-sung said, as they sat in his car outside her building. They like you too. Grace thinks you're carrying something heavy. He went very still. She said that. She's perceptive. It comes from years of taking care of people. Arya turned to face him. Jason, that phone call tonight was work. What kind of work requires you to speak in Korean at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night? Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. The kind where problems don't wait for business hours. What kind of problems? The kind you don't want to know about. What if I do want to know about them? He looked at her then, and she saw something that might have been fear in his eyes. Arya, there are things about my life that I can't change. Things that I have to handle because if I don't, people get hurt. What people? People I'm responsible for, people who depend on me. Like who? Like my cousin, like the people who work for my family. Like, he paused, like you if you stay with me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Are you trying to scare me away? Arya asked quietly. I'm trying to be honest with you. Then be honest. Tell me what you really do. Jae-sung closed his eyes. I run a Korean organization that operates in the gray areas between legal and illegal. We provide services that people need but can't get through official channels. We protect our community. We handle disputes that can't go through the courts, and we make sure that people who prey on the vulnerable face consequences. You're talking about the Mafia. I'm talking about family, about honor, about taking care of people who have no one else to take care of them. Arya felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. So when you said your business was complicated, I meant that sometimes doing the right thing requires doing things that aren't strictly legal. And the phone call tonight? Someone was threatening one of our businesses. It needed to be handled. Handled how? Peacefully. Usually, a conversation is enough to resolve these issues. And when it's not? Jae-sung looked at her steadily. Then we find other ways to protect what's ours. They stared at each other in the dim light of the car, and Arya felt like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not just the charming businessman who'd saved her from champagne-related disaster, but someone harder, more dangerous, more complicated. So, she said finally, you're telling me you're basically a Korean mob boss. I'm telling you I'm a man who takes care of his family and his community, and sometimes that means making difficult choices. And you want me to be okay with that? I want you to know what you're getting into before you get in too deep. Arya thought about her conversation with Grace, about the way Jae-sung had watched the doors during dinner, about the scars on his hands, and the authority in his voice when he'd spoken Korean. What if I'm already in too deep? She asked quietly. Then I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe. Even from yourself? Especially from myself. Arya reached over and took his hand, tracing the scars across his knuckles. These aren't from business meetings, are they? No. How did you get them? Protecting someone I cared about. Did it work? Yes. Would you do it again? Without hesitation. Arya looked into his dark eyes and saw something that made her heart ache. A man who'd been forced to grow up too fast. who'd taken on responsibilities that were too heavy for anyone to carry alone. "Jason," she said softly, "I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never lie to me, even if you think the truth will scare me away, especially then." "I promise." "Good." She leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promises she wasn't sure either of them could keep. "Now walk me to my door before my neighbors start gossiping about the mysterious man in the expensive car." As they walked up to her building, Jae-sung's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "Problem?" Arya asked. "Maybe. I might need to handle something tonight. The kind of something that's dangerous? The kind of something that's necessary?" Arya stopped at her door and turned to face him. "Be careful." "I will." "Promise?" "I promise." She kissed him again, longer this time, like she was trying to memorize the taste of him. "Call me tomorrow?" "First thing." As she watched him drive away, Arya wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or finally doing something brave enough to be worth the risk. Either way, there was no going back now. Arya was closing up the coffee shop on Tuesday evening when she saw them, 3 men in expensive suits standing across the street, watching the shop with the kind of attention that made her skin crawl. They'd been there for 20 minutes, and every time she looked, one of them was staring directly at her. She'd tried calling Jae-sung twice, but both calls had gone straight to voicemail. He'd texted her that morning to say he was handling some urgent business and would call her later, but later had come and gone without a word. "Hey, Arya?" Jessica poked her head out of the back room. "There are some guys outside asking about you." Arya's blood went cold. "What kind of guys?" "The kind that look like they stepped out of a gangster movie. They want to know when you get off work." "Did you tell them?" "Hell no. I told them we were closed and they needed to move along, but they're still out there." Arya peered through the window again. The 3 men were still there, and now they were looking directly at the shop. One of them, a tall man with pale skin and cold eyes, smiled when he saw her looking. Her phone rang and she nearly jumped out of her skin. Unknown number. "Hello? Miss Patel?" The voice was accented. Russian, maybe. "My name is Ivan Morozov. I believe you know a friend of mine, Jae-sung Choi." Arya's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" "Someone who would very much like to meet you. Perhaps you could join me for coffee. I'm right outside." Through the window, she saw the pale man holding a phone to his ear, still smiling. "I don't think so," Arya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Oh, but I insist. You see, Mr. Choi has something that belongs to me, and I think you might be able to help me get it back." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. But that's quite all right. Why don't you come outside and we can discuss this like civilized people?" "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Miss Patel." Ivan's voice turned cold. "I'm trying to be polite, but my patience has limits." Arya's hands were shaking. "What do you want?" "I want you to give Mr. Choi a message. Tell him that his little vacation from family responsibilities is over. Tell him that if he doesn't return what he's taken, there will be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that affect people he cares about." The threat was clear, and Arya felt sick. "I'll give him the message." "Good. And Miss Patel, in the future you might want to be more careful about the company you keep. Mr. Choi's world is dangerous for innocent young women." The line went dead. Arya stood there for a moment, phone in hand, trying to process what had just happened. Through the window, she watched Ivan and his men get into a black SUV and drive away. "Arya," Jessica appeared at her elbow. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What did they want?" "I need to call Jason," Arya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This time," he answered on the first ring. "Arya, are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay. There were men outside the coffee shop. They said their names was Ivan something, and he said you took something that belongs to him." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Jason, where are you now?" "Still at the shop. Stay there. Don't leave. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm coming to get you." "Jason, what's going on? Who is Ivan Morozov?" Another pause. "Someone from my past, someone I hoped would never find out about you." "What did you take from him?" "It's complicated." "Stop saying that." Arya's voice cracked. Stop telling me things are complicated and start telling me the truth. I just got threatened by some Russian guy because of something you did. So I think I deserve to know what's going on. You're right. Jae-sung's voice was heavy. You deserve to know everything, but not over the phone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Jason, 20 minutes, Arya. Don't leave the shop. The line went dead, and Arya stared at her phone, her hands still shaking. Okay, Jessica said. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not leaving you here alone. I'm calling Brian. Jessica, you don't have to— Like hell I don't. You're my friend, and you're scared, and some creepy Russian guys were asking about you. I'm not going anywhere. 15 minutes later, Brian Thompson burst through the door like an avenging angel in a coffee-stained apron, followed by two of the biggest guys Arya had ever seen. These are my brothers, Brian announced. Mike and Tony, they're Marines. Mike and Tony nodded at Arya with the kind of serious expressions that suggested they took threats to coffee shop employees very personally. You don't have to do this, Arya said weakly. Sure we do, Tony said. Brian says you're good people. Good people don't deserve to be hassled by Russian mobsters. How did you know they were Russian? Lucky guess, Mike said dryly. When Jae-sung arrived, he took one look at the impromptu security detail and something like relief crossed his face. Thank you, he said to Brian, for staying with her. Don't thank me yet, Brian said, crossing his arms. Thank me after you explain why my employee is being threatened by guys who look like they stepped out of a Scorsese film. Jae-sung looked at Arya, and she saw something that might have been an apology in his eyes. It's a long story. Then you better start talking, Mike said, because we've got all night. Jae-sung ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time since Arya had known him, he looked genuinely rattled. Ivan Morozov runs a Russian organization that's been trying to move into Korean territory for the past year, he said finally. 6 months ago, he made a play for some of our businesses. When we refused to sell, he decided to take them by force. What kind of businesses? Jessica asked. Legitimate ones. Restaurants, import companies, a few small markets. But Ivan doesn't care about legitimacy. He cares about control. So what did you take from him? Arya asked. Jae-sung looked uncomfortable. Information. Evidence of his illegal activities. Enough to put him away for a very long time. You stole from him? I protected my community from him. There's a difference. Not to him, apparently. Brian said. So what's his endgame here? What does he want? He wants me to return the evidence and withdraw from the territories he's trying to claim. And if you don't, Jae-sung's jaw tightened. He'll make it personal. Personal how? Arya asked, though she was pretty sure she already knew the answer. He'll go after people I care about. Starting with you. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. So, Tony said conversationally, this Russian guy is threatening our friend here because you won't give him back his stolen goods. It's not that simple. Sounds pretty simple to me, Mike interrupted. You got something he wants. He's threatening innocent people to get it back. What's complicated about that? The complicated part, Jae-sung said, his voice tight with frustration, is that if I give him what he wants, he'll destroy dozens of families. The businesses he's targeting employ hundreds of people. The evidence I have is the only thing keeping him from taking over half of Koreatown. And if you don't give it to him, Arya asked quietly, he'll escalate. He'll keep coming after you, after anyone connected to me, until I give him what he wants, or until what? Until one of us is dead. The coffee shop went very quiet. Well, Jessica said finally, this is officially the most dramatic Tuesday night I've ever had. This isn't a joke, Arya snapped. I know it's not. But if I don't make jokes, I'm going to panic, and that's not going to help anyone. Jae-sung's phone buzzed. He looked at it and swore in Korean. What now? Arya asked. Ivan's not waiting for me to think it over. He's making his move tonight. What kind of move? He's hitting one of our restaurants. My cousin's restaurant. Arya saw the conflict in his face, the need to protect his family warring with the need to protect her. Go, she said. I can't leave you. You can't let your cousin get hurt because of me. Go handle it. Arya, I'll be fine. I've got my own personal marine security detail, remember? Mike and Tony nodded grimly. We've got her covered, Brian said. Go take care of your family. Jae-sung looked like he was being torn in half. If anything happens to her, nothing's going to happen to her, Tony said firmly. But if it does, we'll make sure Ivan regrets it. Jae-sung kissed Arya quickly, desperately. I'll be back as soon as I can. Don't go anywhere, don't trust anyone you don't know. And if anything feels wrong, I'll call you. Promise me. I promise. After he left, the coffee shop felt too quiet and too empty. So, Jessica said, settling into a chair like she was planning to stay a while, anyone else think this is like the most intense episode of a K-drama ever? Jessica, Arya said weakly. What? I'm just saying, if this was a TV show, this would be the episode where the female lead realizes she's in love with the dangerous but honorable male lead, and then something terrible happens to test their relationship. Nothing terrible is going to happen, Brian said firmly. You don't know that. I know that we're not going to let anything happen to Arya. Arya looked around at her makeshift protection squad, Jessica with her endless optimism, Brian with his fierce loyalty, Mike and Tony with their military bearing and protective instincts. These people barely knew her, but they were willing to put themselves at risk to keep her safe. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Because you're family, Brian said simply. Maybe not blood family, but family all the same. And family protects family. It was exactly the kind of thing Jae-sung would say, and Arya felt her heart ache with missing him. Her phone buzzed with a text, restaurant secure, Sang-woo safe. Ivan's men retreated, coming back to you now. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by a new worry. This wasn't over. Ivan wasn't going to give up just because one attack had failed. He's okay, she told the others. His cousin is safe. Good, Mike said. But this Ivan guy isn't going to stop here. What do you mean? I mean, guys like him don't take no for an answer. If he can't get what he wants through intimidation, he'll try something else. Like what? Like taking you. The words sent a chill down Arya's spine. You think he'd kidnap me? I think he'd do whatever it takes to get leverage over your boyfriend, Tony said bluntly. And right now you're his best leverage. So what do I do? You stay smart, you stay careful, and you don't go anywhere alone until this is resolved, Brian said. And how exactly is it going to be resolved? That, Mike said grimly, is up to your boyfriend. When Jae-sung returned an hour later, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. There was a cut on his cheek and his knuckles were scraped, but he was alive and whole. What happened? Arya asked, running to him. Ivan's men tried to trash Sang-woo's restaurant. We convinced them it was a bad idea. Convinced them how? The kind of conversation that involves broken furniture and emergency room visits. Arya touched the cut on his cheek gently. Are you okay? I'm fine, but Arya, this is just the beginning. Ivan's not going to stop until he gets what he wants. Then give it to him. I can't. Why not? Because if I do, he'll destroy everything my family has built. He'll hurt innocent people. He'll take over businesses that employ half the Korean community, and he'll use the power to hurt even more people. And if you don't, he'll keep escalating until someone gets killed. Arya looked into his dark eyes and saw the weight of an impossible choice. There has to be another way, she said. Maybe, but it would require doing things that would make me no better than him. What kind of things? Jae-sung's expression went hard. The kind of things I swore I'd never do. But you're considering them. To protect you? I'd consider anything. The words should have been romantic, but instead they terrified her, because she could see in his face that he meant them literally. Jason, she said softly, promise me you won't do anything you can't live with. I can live with anything as long as you're safe. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean. He pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. But some choices aren't about what we can live with. They're about what we can't live without. As Arya held him in the empty coffee shop, surrounded by people who'd become her family, she realized that Jessica had been right about one thing. This was exactly like the most intense episode of a K-drama ever. The only problem was she had no idea how this episode was going to end. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to the coffee shop. Detective Karen Walsh walked in at exactly 8 a.m., ordered a black coffee, and sat down at the corner table like she had all the time in the world. Arya had been expecting this conversation ever since Ivan's threat, but that didn't make it any less nerve-wracking. "Miss Patel?" Detective Walsh approached the counter with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Detective Walsh, LAPD. I was wondering if we could have a chat." "About what?" "About your relationship with Jae-sung Choi, and about some interesting visitors you had yesterday evening." Arya's blood went cold. "I don't know what you mean. 3 men in expensive suits, Russian accents, making threats outside your workplace. Ring any bells?" "I don't have to talk to you without a lawyer. No, you don't. But I'm hoping you'll want to, because right now you're caught in the middle of something that could get you killed, and I might be able to help." Against her better judgment, Arya found herself sitting across from Detective Walsh, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. "How long have you been watching Jason?" she asked. "Long enough to know that he's not just an import-export businessman. Long enough to know that his family's organization has been surprisingly clean compared to others, and long enough to know that Ivan Morozov is bad news for everyone involved." "So you know about Ivan?" "I know that he's been trying to muscle in on Korean territory for months. I know that he's escalating his tactics. And I know that you're now a target because of your relationship with Mr. Choi." Arya stared into her coffee. "What do you want from me?" "Information, cooperation, help putting Ivan away before this turns into a war." "I don't know anything about Jason's business." "Maybe not, but you know him, and right now, he's going to be making some very difficult decisions about how to handle Ivan's threats." "What kind of decisions?" Detective Walsh leaned forward. "The kind that could land him in prison for the rest of his life, or get him killed." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that Ivan Morozov isn't going to stop with threats. He's going to keep escalating until someone does something stupid, and when that happens, a lot of people are going to get hurt." Arya felt sick. "Including Jason. Especially Jason, unless we can find another way to handle this." "What kind of other way?" "The kind where Ivan goes to prison for his actual crimes, instead of everyone destroying each other in a gang war. You want Jason to testify against Ivan. I want Jason to give us the evidence he has against Ivan, and I want him to stay out of the way while we handle it legally." "And you think he'll do that?" Detective Walsh's smile was grim. "Not unless someone he cares about convinces him it's the right thing to do." Arya understood now why the detective was here. "You want me to convince him? I want you to help him see that there's a better way than violence. And if he doesn't listen, then a lot of people are going to get hurt, and you're going to be at the top of that list." After Detective Walsh left, Arya sat in the empty coffee shop, staring at the business card the detective had given her. On the back, Walsh had written a phone number and the words, "When you're ready to end this." When Jae-sung arrived that afternoon, he took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" "Detective Walsh came to see me." Jae-sung went very still. "What did she want?" "She wants you to turn over the evidence against Ivan and let the police handle it." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her I'd talk to you." "Arya, Jason, she's right. This is going to escalate until someone gets killed. Maybe you, maybe me, maybe innocent people who just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." "You think I should trust the police?" "I think you should trust that there might be a better way than whatever you're planning." Jae-sung sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. "You don't understand. Ivan has connections everywhere. Police, judges, prosecutors. Even if I give them evidence, there's no guarantee it will stick. But there's a guarantee that if you handle this yourself, people will get hurt." "People are already getting hurt. Then stop it. Give the police what they need and walk away." "I can't walk away. This is my family, my responsibility. I'm your family too." The words burst out of Arya before she could stop them. "Or am I not important enough to factor into your decisions?" Jae-sung stared at her like she'd slapped him. "You're the most important thing in my life. Then prove it. Choose me. Choose us. Choose a future where we don't have to look over our shoulders for the rest of our lives. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You just have to decide what matters more, your pride or your life." "This isn't about pride, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you'd rather go down fighting than admit that you can't handle this alone." They stared at each other across the small table, and Arya could see the war happening behind his eyes. "If I give the police the evidence," he said finally, "and Ivan walks free because of his connections, what then? He'll come after everyone I care about, and I'll have no way to stop him. And if you don't give them the evidence and this turns into a war, what then? How many people die before it's over?" "I don't know, but you know that some will." "Yes, including possibly you." "Yes. And you're okay with that?" Jae-sung looked at her with eyes full of pain. "I'm okay with anything that keeps you safe, even if it means I lose you. Even then." Arya felt tears burning behind her eyes. "That's not love, Jason. That's martyrdom. Sometimes they're the same thing." "No, they're not. Love is choosing to live. Love is choosing to find a way to be together. Love is trusting that we can figure this out without anyone having to die for it." Jae-sung reached across the table and took her hands. "What if you're wrong? What if I trust the police and Ivan walks free and then he comes after you? Then we'll deal with it together, but at least we'll have tried to do the right thing. And if the right thing gets you killed, then at least I'll die knowing that the man I love didn't become a monster to save me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with everything they meant and everything they feared. "You really think I should do it?" Jae-sung asked quietly. "Trust the police?" "I think you should trust that there's more than one way to protect the people you love. And if it doesn't work, then we'll figure out what comes next, together." Jae-sung closed his eyes, and Arya could see him making the hardest decision of his life. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll call Detective Walsh." "Really? Really? But Arya, if this goes wrong—" "It won't. You don't know that." "No, I don't. But I know that if we don't try, we'll never forgive ourselves." That evening, Jae-sung met with Detective Walsh in a downtown police station, with Arya waiting in the lobby like the world's most nervous girlfriend. 2 hours later, he emerged looking exhausted but relieved. "It's done," he said, sinking into the chair beside her. "I gave them everything. Financial records, recorded conversations, evidence of Ivan's illegal activities going back 2 years. And they think they have enough to arrest him and most of his organization. When? Tomorrow morning, coordinated raids across the city." Arya felt like she could breathe for the first time in days. "So it's over. Maybe, probably, if everything goes according to plan. And if it doesn't?" Jae-sung pulled her close. "Then we'll figure out what comes next, together." The raids happened at dawn. Arya and Jae-sung watched the news coverage from her apartment, holding hands and hardly daring to breathe as reporters announced the arrest of Ivan Morozov and 12 members of his organization on charges ranging from racketeering to extortion to attempted murder. "They got him," Arya whispered. "They got him," Jae-sung confirmed, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked truly at peace. "So, what happens now?" "Now, I figure out how to be a normal businessman instead of whatever I was before." "And us?" "Us," Jae-sung said, turning to face her, "is the easiest part. I love you, Arya Patel. I want to build a life with you that doesn't involve looking over our shoulders or worrying about who might be following us home." "I love you too," she said, and kissed him like they had all the time in the world, which, for the first time since they'd met, they actually did. Arya was teaching Jae-sung how to make the perfect cappuccino when Ava walked into the coffee shop, took one look at them and started laughing. "You two are disgustingly cute," she announced. "It's like watching a romantic comedy, but with more coffee and fewer dramatic misunderstandings." "There were plenty of dramatic misunderstandings," Arya protested, wiping foam off Jae-sung's nose. "We just worked through them. With the help of the LAPD," Jae-sung added dryly. "Details." Ava waved her hand. "The important thing is that you figured it out without anyone getting shot. The bar for success in your relationships is concerningly low," Jessica observed from behind the register. "Hey, when your cousin has a history of dating guys who are either boring or potentially dangerous, no one got shot is actually a pretty high bar." "I don't have a history of dating dangerous guys," Arya protested. "Jason was literally a mob boss," Ava pointed out. "Reformed mob boss," Jae-sung corrected. "I'm completely legitimate now. I have spreadsheets to prove it." "Ooh, spreadsheets," Jessica said. "How romantic." You laugh. But those spreadsheets represent a completely legal import-export business with proper licensing and everything, Arya said proudly. "And a coffee shop," Jae-sung added, gesturing around them. "You bought the coffee shop?" Ava asked. "We bought the coffee shop," Arya corrected. "Partners in business and in life." "Speaking of which," Jae-sung said, reaching into his pocket, "there's something I wanted to ask you." Arya's heart stopped. "Jason, I know we've only been together for 8 months, and I know that half of that time was spent dealing with Russian mobsters and police investigations, but—" "Oh my God," Jessica whispered. "I can't imagine my life without you. You taught me that there's more than one way to solve problems. That family isn't just about blood and obligation, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust someone else to help you carry the weight." Jae-sung dropped to one knee, and Arya felt tears streaming down her face. "Arya Patel, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making terrible coffee and learning how to be the kind of man who deserves you?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, of course, yes." The ring was perfect, simple and elegant, with a diamond that caught the light like it was made of captured starlight. As Jae-sung slipped it onto her finger, the coffee shop erupted in cheers. "Finally!" Brian called from the back room. "I was wondering when you were going to make an honest woman out of her." "Brian." Arya laughed through her tears. "What? You've been glowing like a woman in love for months. It was obvious this was coming." "To everyone except Arya, apparently," Ava said, hugging them both. "Congratulations, you two. You're perfect for each other." "Even though he used to be a criminal?" Arya asked. "Especially because he used to be a criminal. You've always been attracted to the complicated ones." As the celebration continued around them, Jae-sung pulled Arya aside. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. "About what?" "About jumping into the arms of a stranger. About getting involved with someone whose life was complicated and dangerous." Arya thought about everything they'd been through: the champagne disaster, the family dinners, the threats and the fear and the police investigations. She thought about the way he'd looked at her that first day, like she was something precious and unexpected. She thought about the way he'd chosen to trust her judgment over his own instincts, the way he'd been willing to change his entire life for the chance to build something beautiful with her. "My only regret," she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him, "is that I didn't jump into your arms sooner. Even though I was a stranger? Especially because you were a stranger. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Like champagne disasters and coffee shop meet-cutes. Like champagne disasters and coffee shop meet-cutes." As they kissed in the middle of the coffee shop that had become their second home, surrounded by the family they'd chosen and the friends who'd become their support system, Arya marveled at how much her life had changed in 8 short months. She'd started as a barista who couldn't afford to replace a champagne display. Now she was engaged to a reformed mob boss who'd learned to make coffee just to spend more time with her, and they owned a business together that was somehow both completely legal and surprisingly profitable. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was better than anything she could have imagined. And it all started with jumping into the arms of a stranger. What did you think of Arya and Jae-sung's journey from champagne disaster to happily ever after? Rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments below. Did you see the mob boss revelation coming, or were you as surprised as Arya? And, most importantly, would you have jumped into a stranger's arms to escape angry security guards, or would you have faced the champagne consequences alone? Share your thoughts and let me know if your team trust the mysterious businessman, or team run away from obvious danger. Can love really conquer all, even when it involves reformed criminals and Russian mobsters? If you enjoyed this wild ride of romance, comedy, and just enough danger to keep things interesting, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories that prove sometimes the best relationships start with the most chaotic circumstances. Your support through Super Thanks helps me keep bringing you these heartwarming tales of unexpected love. Thank you for being part of this amazing community.